Message from the book Living and Loving by João de Angelis. Message: let not yourself be deterred. Slander affected you because you paid attention to it. Calumny harmed you because you gave importance to it. Discord has upset your ideals because you paused to consider it. Hatred has embittered you because of your hurt pride and inflated self-esteem. Dispute hampered your work because you let yourself be entangled in it. Doubt nestled in your mind because you kept yourself in aimless idleness. Accusers live within a low vibrational level. To give them too much attention in order to attract their sympathy is a waste of time. You expected a general approval but did not care to consult with God. If you are striving to do good and others accuse you, if you are generous but people call you a speed theft, if you are humble and people say you are stupid, if you are self-disciplined and people judge you as strict, if you meet your duties and others curse you, if you bow in prayer and try to act in according to the gospel and people despise you, do not consider their opinions, because that is not what the Almighty Father thinks of you. Do not let others' opinions deter you. Do not allow yourself to be either afflicted or conflicted by the contradictory opinions of others. Accept only the inspiring suggestions that stimulate your spiritual progress. You will always meet those who are productive and those who complain, accuse, criticize, and harass. Such people come and go and are soon forgotten, but the work done by those who dedicate themselves to good will last forever.
Dear God, we are very happy to be here one more time, together to study about your laws. Please help us to have an open heart and mind, to absorb all the teachings, and to make all the changes that we already can. So be it.
So welcome everyone for us to carry on our studies on weekly basis, as we are here always as students, brothers and sisters in humanity, ourselves and all of those in the spirit who are also granted the possibility for us to carry on reflecting about the universal laws. And we are studying the Spirit's book, and we are coming towards the end of this book. We are focusing on reflecting on the conclusion, which are the teachings of St. Augustine. And we are in the item 6 where we are reflecting. And last week, we finished on this slide. Just for us to accommodate our thoughts, let's read it once more so that we can get into it and then we carry on. The Spirit's book is written, giving the instructions by the Enlightened Spirits through Allan Kardec, who was the codifier. And here we are in the conclusion, part 6 now, carry on. Last week the final slide was, I just read it for us to locate ourselves. Could the obstacles that have been set up against the free expression of a spirit manifestation silence them? No, such obstacles would have the effect of all other prohibitions, that of exciting curiosity and the desire to investigate what is being prohibited. On the other hand, if spirit manifestations were the personal privilege of only a single individual, no one would doubt that if that individual were out of the way, the manifestations would cease. Are we clear? But how is that coming to us now? What is that about? When we read it, when we heard it? Is it focused on the Spirit's manifestations that we are learning through the teachings of St. Augustine?
So what was before there? Because it says, could the obstacles that have set up against to free the expression of spirit manifestation silence them? What are those obstacles?
What are the obstacles that we saw last week that could silence the spirit's manifestations? If you look in history, what were the obstacles?
But there's prejudice, isn't
The
there?
prejudice, yes. And also the prejudice, the lack of understanding of the reality about the immortal beings. In the old days, even when we consider ourselves as immortal beings, when we came in previous existences, which we were much more materialistic and we couldn't understand much more than that, we considered hearing from spirits would be the demons. We still have these days, isn't it, sometimes?
And what just came to mind now is if we think about the Quran, which has Moses says that communicating with spirits is one of the laws that he set. And the reason why he said that law was because of the frivolity of the people that were speaking to the spirits. So we could put that as an obstacle.
That was as well. And the prohibition was merely because of the frivolity, where and then perhaps we were part of that stage of evolution, but people were asking for the spirits. Will I win in a lottery? What will be the price of mine? Whatever. So it was pretty much the questions regarding to the terrestrial level, to the personal interest. So which impact did that have on the humanity or the society? Because the people weren't thinking for themselves anymore. They just went to ask the spirits for these simple daily experiences. And then Moses came to know, stop that because that is not helping neither of us.
But they also say, acquiring, if we think about us as beings, as to acquire any sort of knowledge or any sort of spiritual elevation is having the right questions. And the frivolity is not having the right questions. It's just showing the level of spirituality in which we were. And that's a huge obstacle, not knowing what to ask,
Yes.
which is the beauty of the Spirit's book. It's interesting that this is put at the end of the conclusion, that Allan Kardec knew how to ask the right questions, which wasn't going to benefit just him. It wasn't going to benefit just his circle. It was something that's benefited everyone universally. If we know how to read into it.
And what is the major point in asking the spirits? Because even the spirits book is based on the dialogue with the spirits, isn't it? So what was or is the major aspect in inquiring the spirits? When we take the spirits book as an example, what was the major aspect for Allan Kardec to ask the question for the superior spirits? What was the major objective? The central point.
To prove the existence of the soul.
What is the essence of Spiritism?
Love.
It is to prove the immortality of the soul, for sure, because they are coming back to say, but this is also focus on understanding ourselves as moral individuals. So it's not on our terrestrial experiences, but where we are psychologically and emotionally in terms of where we are moving forward in our pathway of evolution. So we understand the Spiritism as being science, philosophy, and religion or ethical values. So the core is love, the core comes back to the emotion, the core comes back to the ethics, the core comes back to move us forward in new understanding beyond the materialistic experiences that we all are undergoing. Is that okay? So now let's move on then to the next one where we carry on today. Carla, would you like to read it for us, please?
Unfortunately, for our anniversaries, the manifestations are within everybody's reach and are being utilized by all, from the least to the greatest, from the palace to the humble. It might be possible to prevent them from being produced in public, but it is well known that they are more effectively produced not in public but in private.
Okay. Let's explore now this paragraph. What is St. Augustine trying to teach us here, or how do we understand his teachings today, as we are all beings in evolution? That means that our thinking also evolves, but today, how is that coming to us? What is this paragraph about?
Is this manifestation about the mechanism?
The spirits. The manifestations are within everybody's reach and are being utilized by all, from the least to the greatest, from the palace to the whole. My question is why the spirits manifestations are within the reach of everybody? Because we are all spirits. So
we can all, some of us can communicate in a more extensive way with ones that have no body, but we can all, I think in the same way we have this intuitive thinking about the existence of God, I think it's works the same, the communication with the spirits.
So because we are all immortal beings, we all think and feel, even if we are not aware of. Therefore, thinking and feeling means that we are communicating. Wherever we are, with who we are, even if no one believes in us, even if no one sees us, because we don't have the ostensive mediumship, but they exist as we are in the flesh. Others are out of the physical body, and they are everywhere. Yes, and they can communicate. We may not listen to them. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's because it's part of the natural law when we consider the law of reincarnation, when we consider the immortality of the soul, when we consider God's or the universal laws where no one dies, we live forever, we are alive. When we think and feel, we are communicating. Those who are, let's say, aware on that level or evolved to that level, they can communicate with us. But as more as we study, we also understand when we think and feel, we are already communicating with other beings in the universe. Does that make sense?
It's the language of the spirits. I think it's always really important to kind of look at why it is they use certain words, and the compassion of sometimes was seen to say, unfortunately for our adversaries, because those who are adversaries, they're in the ignorant state, trying to prevent something that is inevitable, and there's always compassion there, isn't there? It's interesting because it can't be stopped, no matter who we are or where we are. We can trap matter, but we can't trap spirit. And the way that he puts it there is kind of, it's a compassionate way of looking at the ignorance of those who are trying to prevent it, you know. Goodness, those who are trying to protect it.
Because when we see the previous slides, this was in relation to the conclusion part, in relation to the difficulties there and then that Allan Kardec had in relation to presenting this new theory for men, for people in society on academic level, who never heard about that. And then they have these arguments on a rational level, not in a fighting level, on a rational level. He was explaining the differences. And even if men don't accept, don't want to look at it, no one can impede the reality of the immortality and that we are all progressing towards the greatest understanding.
Was this around the same time as the burning of the books, wasn't it?
It was on a time.
It's around the same time.
Yes, when we read the Spiritist magazine, the 12 volumes, there Allan Kardec has a lot of arguments in relation to the adversaries, but he always, when he went into argument, it was never to fight, but always to prove. He has a scientific mind, a rational mind, and he always proved, and he always, let's say, challenged those who say that it doesn't exist. When he said, well, negating something, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. He always has these rational ways of dialoguing and presenting it, and I can just imagine how challenging it was for him. But this is the way forward. And then St. Augustine continued, it might be possible to prevent them from being produced in public, but it is well known that they are more effectively produced not in public, but in private. Can we impede them to be produced in public? Yes, that is easy, isn't it? But now when he carries on, but it is well known that they are more effectively produced, the Spiritist manifestations, more effectively produced not in public but in private. Why? Why the Spirit's manifestations are, let's say, more effectively produced in private and not in public?
It has more, the people that believe, for example, you go to a Spiritist church, the people believe the spirits and they attract the spirits. So the mediums find it easier to pick up messages from them. I know a friend of mine who was a medium in clairaudient, not all the time, but he would suddenly get a message. And it was that clear to him, like a person speaking to him. So about here, he tells me, he hears it. And I think you can't go out I don't believe in going out with, say, Leicester Square with all that music and, we can get spirit for you and this sort of thing. It's much better off in a private meeting where anyone can go if they really want to. I mean, they can go to a Spiritist church. I'm going to one this evening. It's a very good medium tonight. She's a lovely lady. and she gets some wonderful messages from my parents. Gives me a bit of proof that it is there.
Okay.
Very, very good.
And why us within Spiritism believe that the Spiritist phenomena happen better or are produced better in private?
So,
Kardec says in Definitions in another book called The Medium's Book.
Correct.
He talks about the necessity we all have to all be having the same thoughts and the same feelings for the meeting to have success.
So correct, because there's less disturbance on the psychic level, fewer people who already are more prepared, with more discernment, therefore the psychic is more centered, more balanced, and therefore it's easier and more effectively, especially when we are referring to the superior communications. Because communications are all, we have all types and all sorts of, yes. But when we refer to the serious communications more effectively in terms even of consoling a spiritism, helping or receiving higher instructions, that usually happens in a more safer, more private environment. Not private in a sense that we are hiding something. No. It's just in terms of having more harmony, more peace in that way that helps the higher spirits to come and to communicate and even to console others and to help others.
And vibration to the people that go to the meeting.
Precisely.
Because they believe in it. Elsa Rossi has, meetings in Bethnal Green, Oxford. At the moment, they can't meet in the evenings, but we used to meet once a month for a mediumship. And even once I went into sort of trance, and once 2 messages come through, because the atmosphere is so different to anything else.
Yes,
that couldn't
also,
happen. What happened with me couldn't happen in anybody.
it's interesting because if they bring these ideas to us and we're talking about mediumship, but if we think logically, anything that's produced, that's well produced, and it's a group of people, because we're all individual spirits, when there's harmony of emotions, it's not just intellect, it's not interest, it's not curiosity, it's the harmony of emotions. Once there's those feelings of the people, then there's an openness for the spirits to be able to communicate, because there's trust, there's no manipulation, there's no intentions from behind, and that's so important, and that's why it's more effectively produced in private, simply because we have free will, and other people are going to be thinking and are going to be wherever they're going to be, and that's fine. But when it comes to communicating with that which we're still coming out of the caves, it's really important that we self-protect.
Yes.
In the sense of keeping it private, because it's the same way as we keep our emotions private. We respect everyone, but we love a few. We interact with everyone, but we trust a few. Why is that? When we've got huge projects, we tell only a few people. We don't tell everyone. So if we use our logic, everything the Spirit says has a logic behind it. And so, the Spirit's manifestation is nothing different than any other project in life in which we're doing. And the respect that we're going to have, the understanding, whether we're studying, whether we're in the right emotional place, is going to determine the quality of that communication.
The harmony between the individuals, and therefore the harmony of the collective setting here, which is very important. Then everything flows better, which is a very different psychosphere than when people are curious about, people are doubting, others are complaining, others are saying that's not true. That all is communication. That is very, let's say, toxic. Instead of being open and free and harmonic, it is blocking it.
I don't remember if it's Yavatos Merges, I don't know which one of Emmanuel's messages, but he mentions as well, he was talking about, if you're listening to a lecture and you're thinking, gosh, but the lecturer is talking too much. If you're going to a Spiritist center, so yeah, it's really nice there, but, I don't like the way things are here and this and that. If you're going anywhere and you're going to have those self-doubts, like it or not, you can't prevent it, you're affecting negatively.
Yes.
So having that open mind and being able to really educate our thoughts when we're coming into these kind of environments is fundamental for the effective and for a positive production, which is why sometimes you get so much chaos and people are like, yeah, but I'm here, I'm trying to do the best. But actually, no, what you're thinking and what you're feeling isn't in accordance with your actions. That's why there is so much friction. That's why there is so many problems. It's interesting to...
Yes. Can we move on? Yes. Then let's move on to the next one. Jack, would you like to read it for us, please?
Yeah. In addition, since all persons are mediums, how would it be possible to prevent family members in their own home, individuals in the silence of their workplace, or prisoners in their cell from having communications with spirits behind their guards' backs or even before their very eyes? If mediums were forbidden in one country, could they be hindered in neighbouring countries or in the entire world, since there is not a single region in the two halves of the world in which there are no mediums? In order to imprison all the mediums, it would be necessary to detain half the human race.
How do we understand St. Augustine's teachings here?
There are more mediums around than real.
Why are there more mediums around, Jack?
They've got it within them. They've brought it from the spirit world and they've developed it in past lives and what they know in the back of their minds, maybe not here. I mean, I know I'm a medium for healing, but I never knew in the early days. I thought it was a big joke. I thought when someone told me about it for the very first time, I thought she was.
So instead of thinking that...
And yet, she asked me to put my hand on, I don't know if I've told you this before, about the cat's cheek. Yet the cancer healed up. And I thought she was crazy. It was only my friend that persuaded me to go to a group of healing.
Okay.
Popped along there.
What else is coming to us here?
I think Immortal tells that we see mediums as rare animals.
Precisely.
And he was saying, no, it's not that half of the human race is animals. Everyone is mediums.
Half of the human race are mediums. Let's be clear. Yeah, Louis. Yes. Why half of the human race are mediums? As you said, apart from what Jack said, why are half of the human race mediums? How do we within Spiritism understand mediums?
We understand in the beginning of the religious book, Kardec says that we are all mediums because we all think. However, it is considered those people who the faculty is expressed in a more
Extensive way, precisely. And why is that difference that for some, we are all mediums in general, and yet why for some the mediumship is more extensive than others? Why is that?
The degrees of mediumship goes in a variety of spectrums, which is why Allan Kardec has the mediums book as well, because it is complex. But usually it's to awaken us to the immortality of the soul.
Would we say that we just as immortal beings in such a short time, which is one existence, we came with different tasks to carry out? Because some people perhaps in current life existence, we may not be ostensively mediums, but we are mediums anyway. And the next existence we may be. We have different tasks that we come to carry out in terms to evolve. Is that right?
Yeah. But exactly, and the faculty is so subtle that sometimes we might have mediumship, engage in conversations in our thoughts and don't even realize we have it.
Yes, because we are walking towards gradually following the evolution and the law of progress. Now we still have specific faculties for specific learnings as immortal beings. But as more as we evolve, we know that we will develop all the intuition, the faculty of intuition. Then we don't need the faculties as more as such, and we carry on that. And we are developing. Sometimes someone may not have the ostensive mediumship, but as more as the person develops their own evolution on the psychological, emotional, spiritual level, they open their psychic channels and they can have high interactions and perceptions from the enlightened spirits. Because that is part of maturing. Does that make sense? What else we take here? Are there places where mediums still these days, when I say these days currently, are not well perceived? Unfortunately, we still have that, yes. And we know that is the ignorance of not understanding the natural laws in life.
It's a mixture of ignorance, of prejudice against that which is unknown, but it's also responsible for the mediums who have been frivolous and have set a bad reputation.
Correct.
So it's both parties have got that part, and it's interesting that Allan Kardec would actually delve into something like this, because I think that before that it was even more frivolous, wasn't it, Eunice?
More frivolous and which much more prejudice, much stronger prejudice, I would say. That even people would ignore people because they knew they were mediums and understanding that that comes from the devil, which now we understand is all part of the natural laws. We all have psychic faculties. We all have that. When we studied the medium's book, we realized that what we, through our ignorance or through our immaturity, consider supernatural or fantastic or marvelous, as more as we study the natural laws, mediumship is spirit, is part of the natural laws in the universe. You want to say something, Karen?
No.
You have been laughing. I wonder where you were there.
No, I'm here.
Okay, then we carry on the next one, which says, if it were possible to burn all the Spiritist books, which would not be an easy task, they would be reproduced the next day, because their source cannot be stricken, and because one could never imprison or burn the spirits, their true authors.
That's obvious.
Sorry?
That's obvious.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
So let's imagine how can we develop that for someone who never heard and understand that. If it were possible, so they are challenging us here as spirits who are incarnate, yes? Was there a phase in history that the Spiritist books were burned? Why? What was that action called? Inquisition. And why was the reason that the Spiritist books have been burned throughout history?
Because the adversaries from that, those who are still do not want the truth to be shown. They don't want to. They need to keep ignorance in a certain level in order to manipulate people. And the Spirit's book was opening the visions of many people who were very materialistic.
I think the major point was the materialism. Yes, because why? What has the materialism connected or linked with burning the Spiritist book? The Spiritist books, because of their books. What was written or what was presented through the Spirit's book, which are the teachings of the Enlightened Spirits, which brings the message of Jesus, which brings the word of God. What was there that affected so greatly the materialism that we want to suffocate it? Wasn't that the intention? So what was there? What is there? Or let's say was, because it happened there.
Was it the fact that rich and poor come and go back? Was that the one?
I think that is one of the aspects, because within the materialistic viewpoint, if I'm very rich, that is my reality. And I would never consider, through the law of reincarnation, the need to come back to a new body and go through a learning, let's say, in being poor or deprived financially. Other aspect, the social position, which is still these days can be very challenging. If we are immortal beings, the spirits who are back, but we still are full of pride, and we still bring our psyche impregnated with the materialism. Because that for a prideful person is very challenging to consider that I'm a high position, and suddenly, if not in this existence, in other existence, I will be in a lower, as a learner of the universal laws. But pride makes us feel bigger or higher than we really are. So when we learn humbleness, then we understand better and see, well, I cannot learn everything in the same position. We all will have, in a natural way, the need to come back in different experiences to learn different lessons, which are on the psychic level, as immortal beings. And there is nothing wrong. No one is of less value because we temporarily are in a lower, let's say, professional position or in a lower social position. We keep on being valuable human beings, immortal beings who are loved by God, even in those temporary experiences that we go through. What was the other?
We had a lot of messages from spirits that are who were queens, who were monarchs, who were the top of the top, only then to reach the spiritual plane and see that their servants are more spiritually evolved than them. But also what's interesting is that their servants are still there to serve them. because that's it. You see the whole
That is the higher level.
the higher
But the higher level on morality,
Yeah,
which is
yes.
very different than a materialistic view in terms of having things, of having position. But the higher level of actually through the journey being capable of detaching ourselves from things and becoming more, let's say, spiritualized. And in that way, we are developing the other aspects of our psyche, which are the virtues. And as more as we develop the virtues, which we bring the germs within, since our creation, more humble we become, more we are devoting in serving and helping, because we are that action, that behavior comes from the heart. There is no interest.
And you know,
There is no secondary gain.
what you said was the lack of humbleness makes us think we are bigger than what we actually are, which is again, it's if we use logic, if we think really, why would we want to elude ourselves only then to fall back down? Isn't it better to see ourselves how we are and slowly grow and be who we are, rather than thinking we're this and then actually finding, because the shock of when we realize that we're not actually what we think we are is painful.
Yes.
And it
And
takes
yes,
people
necessary.
years to get out to the point where we
Sometimes
go into
centuries.
depressions, it goes into desperation, but I thought I was this and now I've realized I'm not this, and then the humility becomes humiliation rather than humbleness.
It's not that it becomes, it is already under the selfish mind. Because remember, when we are prideful and selfish, prideful, consider humbleness means weakness. This is how we developed ourselves through materialism. Now, as more as we free ourselves from pride and develop humbleness, we realize that humility is the greatness or the strength of the soul. It is actually the real power from our essence level onwards. We have distorted the values within ourselves because we all have been created simple and ignorant, and we bring all the seeds of the virtues of the real values within, and God gave us the faculty of freedom, the liberty, for us now to learn to use it spontaneously and freely, to train our thinking according to His will. But previously we did it according to our will. Then we trained ourselves almost the opposite of what is the real values, what are the real values. And now we are understanding, and then we wake up and say, oh my God, I'm not that. It can be quite shocking sometimes, can even people consider suicide, because it really affects the pride. And as more as we study, we will realize, as I mentioned, we are all valuable, loving beings, created by God. Doesn't matter which kind of temporary experience we go through. The experiences are lessons that we need to go through to strengthen our ethical values within. So the challenge is outside, as we are in a society, and the society is one of the laws of God, that we can train when the old me comes up, that I can now re-educate myself according to the new values, that I bring it in and stimulate them. Then we break through the old ways of being and promote ourselves as spiritual. Anything else here? No? Then let's move on. Then Uza, would you like to read the next one for us, please?
Spiritism is not the work of any one individual. No one can claim to be its author, for it is as old as creation itself. It is found everywhere, in all religions, especially in Catholicism, where, in actuality, it has more authority than in all others. Catholicism contains the principles of all the manifestations, spirits of every degree, their secret and patent relationship with humankind, guardian angels, reincarnation, the emancipation of the soul during life, second sight, visions, manifestations, and every kind, apparitions, and even tangible apparitions. That's so interesting. Because I mean, now if we look at Catholicism and we talk to a nun about spirits, they will do the sign of the cross and walk away and pray for us for the day.
Yes. You are really in need of prayer. What are you looking at me, Cindy? Are you agreeing, disagreeing, or where are you?
Just thinking.
Okay, so if you go through, because there's a lot of information here about St. Augustine, and is St. Augustine with his teachings, yes? It's interesting to see when spirits evolve beyond a certain kind of religion, because they do understand religiosity, which is part of the natural law in the universe, and they universalize their thinking. They can be in such a school of spirituality, but their thinking goes beyond that. We also did have Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who was in Catholicism, but her thinking, her behaving, her acting was beyond that frame. So that shows then when we as immortal beings, once we learn, we integrate that as part of our way of being, even for any reason that we come back to follow a specific spiritual pathway, is still our thinking, our acting, our behaving, or moving. It transcends, it goes beyond. Yeah? Because there was a reason why Mother Teresa came back to that, but she helped well beyond that. She still is teaching all of us today. Yes, and when
What came to mind is one reporter, which was actually, because she paid the price for her spirituality as well. One of the reporters saw her as cruel because she had somebody who had an illness, and one of the volunteers decided that they wanted to come and save that person and take them from there and take them to the best hospital and save. And she says, no, they're going through their process. And her task was there to be the support while the person's spirit was going through that cleansing process. And she was seeing that, and she wasn't trying to cure everyone, she was trying to show love, which is different from trying to be the savior of everything.
That is precisely what we learn with Andrea Luis, with the higher spirits, how they work. They don't go there and save people. They don't go there and help those who are not ready yet. They help those who know. They know who is ready, who is not. They know how to help. They know that every one of us needs to cooperate with our own process. So again, through more maturity on the psychological and emotional level, which happens through our own evolution as immortal beings, we equip ourselves in a more centered way, in a more aligned way with the universe, with the real love. Then we don't feel like to be the saviors of everyone and carry other people around. No, we carry ourselves and we help everyone going through their experiences.
With us being the instrument of goodness, and especially what Jack was talking about healing as well, we're instruments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we know our place as instruments, we know that sometimes we will be instruments which are going to do things which we're not aware of. And when we can have that, almost that level of humility of knowing that, we become better instruments.
Yes, especially when we free ourselves from the control of trying to save everyone and really I need to be there, I need to be calling, I need to be doing. No, that is disturbance. That is really disturbance that we bring within. When we center ourselves, we are much more useful in the universe. We help with more quality. Is that making sense? Yeah. So now if you go through here, it's interesting. Spiritism is not the work of any one individual. Why is St. Augustine trying to teach us here? With this little phrase, Spiritism is not the work of any one individual.
Since we all are spirits, so it's like the work of all of us, basically.
Is he referring to help us to reflect within the systems that were there and then present on earth and still are in relation to religion? Don't we have religions these days who are based on the interpretation of one person? Yes, I think he's helping us. Again, it's not written there, but if you think Spiritism is not the work of any one individual, it's helping us to go beyond what already is going on earth. We still have that today, but it's really helping us as immortal beings, knowing that Spiritism is the teaching of the enlightened spirits who bring the word of the good news from Jesus, which brings the word of God. So no one is the owner of these teachings. Is that making sense? No one as incarnate say, well, Spiritism is mind right, or no. We are all here learning, we are all students that we comprehend better. And then it carries on, no one can claim to be its author, for it is as old as creation itself. What do we understand with that phrase? What do we learn here? No one can claim to be its author, as we saw already, because the authors are the immortal beings, the superior enlightened spirits, for it is old as creation itself. Therefore, is Spiritism new? No. Why not? Because a lot of people don't know about Spiritism. When you say Spiritist, what? Is Spiritist, what? So if Spiritism is not new, why do so few people not know it?
Because part of it could be because of our level of evolution, like where we are. Even though we've probably been in and out for thousands and thousands of years, and probably we learned that way, but then somehow we forgot, and then we came here to prove, somehow that we want to take this path, but we just chose to neglect it again. So maybe because, the planet where we live nowadays is not as evolved, but because our level of faith.
Why is Spiritism old as creation itself?
Spiritism teaches about the laws of God, and the laws of God exist since everything.
Since the creation. Yeah, simple like that. The laws of God exist since the creation.
And they're still the same, because
Precisely. So why are so few people who hear or believe in Spiritism? If Spiritism is old as the creation?
Because it touches on personal interests, mainly.
Is it because the Spiritism, how old is the Spiritism?
50 years old.
Okay, so it's quite young, but it's old as creation. So is it because the way that the spirits are now bringing the old information, the universal laws, in a new way that few people have knowledge on earth? Yeah? Is that making sense?
This is a reality of life eternal that we all have. But not everyone is aware of it.
Yes.
Not every religion is aware of this way of life.
Precisely.
Spiritism is a word expressed during the time of Allan Kardec. The spirits of light come through, they give us all the information. And it's called Spiritism for a reason, because we know what Spiritism is. We study in the Spirit's book, the Meaning's book, the Gospel.
So
We all these, but it's down and put in a certain way by certain people who have that knowledge. And the people here who want to follow that system, call it Spiritism, it's not a problem.
I have a doubt.
That's why it's called Spiritism, because that's what the word they used.
What
The
is
information
Spiritism,
comes
John?
The knowledge of spirit.
Spiritism is a science that deals with the origin, nature, and destiny of the spirits and their interaction with the corporeal world. Is that the same reference than other religions? No.
No.
We have the triple aspects:
Yeah.
science, philosophy, and religion, and they are all interconnected. That is a different way of bringing it now, the old knowledge in a different new
So
version.
spiritualism, look at all the different philosophers they've had. Silver Birch was what I was first introduced to, for example. You've got loads of books from spiritualism, you've got books from Spiritism. It's what you feel, like I do, that Spiritism is the highest form of understanding
Yes, it is
and
an,
expression.
it is an
It is it's serious without being miserable. Let's put it that way. It makes sense to me. No, I've studied
No, I
spiritual
like the
books.
serious. It's serious, yes. Because it really, why is it so serious?
Yeah.
What is different what we learned previously?
There are people who think if you're serious, you're miserable. You're not.
No, when we are
You're
serious within Spiritism, we are happier.
That's right. Exactly.
We are more light-hearted. Yeah,
But
our
it's
heart is
serious
lighter.
and intelligent.
And it's very
And it
deep
makes sense.
because it goes back to the deep roots of all creation.
It's that bit, I'm prejudiced, but it's a bit higher than spiritualism and the attitude
It
of
has
spiritualism.
different, because in evolution
It
we
makes-
all
it makes
carry on
sense,
evolving,
yeah.
yes.
Like it says there, all religions have got knowledge of spirit, but they don't all follow the spiritualist line.
We can say, Jack, we have these days a lot of religions, and even the spirits, Emmanuel, João de Anjos, and also Allan Kardec, they teach us that a lot of religions talk about the spirits, but not in the way that the Spiritism does. Why not? What is different?
Well, they believe you have eternal life, but only if you follow their religion. I remember scripture lessons at school. Only those that believe in Jesus have eternal life. So what about the people that didn't believe in Jesus? What's going to happen to them? What about the people who were alive before Jesus was born? You don't get an answer to those.
I think the major aspect within Spiritism for all of us is to learn that we are responsible for our evolution. That differs greatly, because here we are constantly reminded back to us to potentialize ourselves from within. That is a bit different. And also when we talk about the immortality of the soul, we follow the law of progress. We are not just, we know that we are immortal and we live there and see God sitting there. No, we understand that the universe is moving through the guidance of God, and we as his creatures, we are also invited to engage in that proposal, to stimulate ourselves in an ongoing process of evolution through the responsibility and also the cultivation of our own virtues.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter what religion you're born into, but these people, Catholics, Jews, Protestants, Muslims, only have religions.
We all are learning.
They really believe that, some of them.
Because we understand different religions, they all in essence have the goodness and teaching, and we are all different degrees of understanding the same truth in the universe.
Everyone has eternal life regardless of their religion.
What you see as well with the spirituality is that we see that in all religions, there's always somebody that stands out to help guide those that are in that chain of thought. But what Spiritism does, which is so powerful, and what makes people believe that it's the highest level, is because it touches on the pains of the soul. You know, pains that we don't understand. Why did I, in this incarnation, come with the family that I did? Why did I go through what I did? Why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? How come these things keep happening to me? Why is it that certain people come into my life? Why shouldn't I commit suicide? Why shouldn't I be cruel? You know, and Spiritism, you can come to a Spiritist center with those questions and you will get concrete answers. They're not going to be pleasant answers, but they're going to be real, concrete and realistic. And then once you have those answers, you're also embraced with tools that is for me to look after myself. Nobody's going to go, whereas the mistake that happens with a lot of faiths is that we put it outside. So I'll go to, let's say we'll use Catholicism because that's what sometimes it's referring to. I'll say, okay, well, I committed a sin. I'm going to go to the Father. I'll confess my sin. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. These are my sins. Then the Father will say 5 Hail Marys, 4 Alpha Fathers, and then you're forgiven. But I've given all my power to that priest in that box, where Spiritism is going to say, okay, well, you've got your sins. You call a sin, which we need to look at that word for exactly what it means. It's your responsibility.
Confess yourself to yourself.
And then,
which is so different.
And your conscience is going to be relieved in accordance to you. Because only you are going to know when you've paid your own debts. You know, because God doesn't want us suffering and doesn't want us going back and forth, paying and suffering and all of that. So how is it that you're going to deal with your inner self? And then we've got charity, we've got the studies, then we've got so many opportunities to grow in one incarnation. That's the difference.
Yes. The confess ourselves means that we are stimulated to be sincere with ourselves. Is to free ourselves from our own masks. We all do mistakes as learners. There is no guilt imposed to anyone. Well, on the contrary, Spiritism helps to free ourselves from any guilt, because we are students and learners of ourselves, and surely we did mistakes all, but if we learn to become more humble, then we also can embrace our past in a loving way, because we are developing self-love and carry on improving ourselves, but without any guilt, without any information that we will burn in heaven for hell forever. That doesn't exist. God is love, and therefore his laws refer to love. And as more as we learn, more we empower ourselves, more we heal ourselves, less we will even consider suicide, because we know that would be the greatest transgressions against the natural laws within, and then the difficulty that I'm facing here becomes even worse later. So we have different understanding, that those understanding that come from the teachings of the Enlightened Spirit, they bring consolation, they bring hope to the souls, to the spirits that are us, and not punish. If you did wrong, which we all did, but we are loving beings. Now we are trying to do better. And we take responsibility, because responsibility is the internal autonomy of the immortal being who can embrace our past, present, and future in the here and now. Yeah? Where are we? Did we finish it?
So Catholicism contains principles of the manifestations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So spirits of every degree, their secret fates and relationships with humankind. So guardian angels, so that's definitely in there.
Mm-hmm.
So how could we have guardian angels if they're not spiritual beings?
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder how they see this, because I know that I was talking to someone that goes to the church, read the Bible, I assume. And I was talking about Spiritism, and they were trying to kind of understand. And then I said, wow, you have many passages where they talk about people being possessed and about Jesus help. What do you think was happening? They go like, okay, but they know that they thought. So I wonder how they interpret or what they read. So
this is why when St. Augustine said at the beginning, Spiritism is not the work of any one individual. Within Spiritism, we are invited to study in groups, and of course, also on the individual level, but in groups, because if I have one line of reasoning and others have a different one, I can change mine if there is not a correct one. We are learning together, we are all learning still. Does that make sense? But again, when we were in that school, in that level, we also behaved in the same level. Didn't we? We went to the church, we were there, we did a cross, but we didn't understand much because we weren't motivated, stimulated to think for ourselves. That is another point which is new in Spiritism, which is constantly helping us and stimulating us for us to think. This is why we say, what to understand now? How do you understand it now? Because we became very lazy, psychically speaking, when we weren't motivated to think for ourselves. Well, I believe in God. Why? Because the priest says so. We also went through that level of intuition. Now, when we say, I believe in God, Spiritism is asking us for us to give a rational answer. Why do I believe in God?
I think as well people see it more like mythologies.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of looking at these words and guardian angels and reincarnation, they might look at it as just a story, rather than looking that this is real.
I think more in the way that I perceive it, and I may be wrong, but more in a fantastic way, in a feminist way, not in a reality that they are real beings, immortal beings, that we all have, or spiritual guides who are there to help us. Can we move on here? Here we still have reincarnation, the emancipation of the soul during life. How do we understand that? What do we understand about the emancipation of the soul during life?
So it's when the spirit manifests in different places, even though, is that the one?
What do we understand about when St. Augustine says the emancipation of the soul during life?
The freedom of the soul.
The freedom of the spirit.
Yeah, to do what no, it's in the physical one now. At night, he can go back to the spiritual.
When we sleep in the evening, we are emancipating ourselves spiritually. So when I say I go to sleep, my body goes to sleep.
That's right.
But as an immortal being, because we are three-dimensional beings, physical body, a spiritual body, and a spirit. So when we go to sleep, the physical body sleeps, but the spirit, through the perispirit, which is the spiritual body, emancipates, and off we go in different experiences. We are free.
I didn't know they had this in Catholicism. They will talk,
I'm trying to think of a passage where they're doing that, but I'm sure.
Could be that they have different.
Because I think they believe like you die somehow and then like you kind of have a soul. But
Yes.
I don't know if they think that, if we're gonna be sitting.
I don't believe.
But I don't know what they think about
They have
it.
a different understanding. And the way that I understand or hear St. Augustine's words is, again, when we talk about reincarnation, which is the example that he gave, But as immortal beings who are evolving in different ways, can we not have different understanding about the same words? And I think that is what he is referring here. With the guardian angels, with the reincarnation, because everything is gradual. And then the emancipation of the soul as well during life. Second sight, visions, manifestations. I do believe these days within Catholicism, it may not be so open for the public in general, but those who are studying, I think they have the understanding. But if you would come out, then you need to really consider the other values that you bring. It is a gradual process. And Paul Franz, I think he is bringing a lot of contribution, that he is breaking through a lot of patterns here that gradually comes through. Pope Franz. Pope Franz. He's almost like actualizing gradually the values and some kind of belief systems. Then the last is, as for depictions of demons, they are no more than bad spirits. And except for the belief that demons are forever predestined to wickedness, whereas the Spiritism holds that bad spirits have the path of progress open before them. There is no other difference. How do we explain that?
They can progress through their own efforts when they're ready.
Yeah.
When they realise that it's not right to be evil or bad, they should need to go down the...
Yeah. In which way can we realize that we have the need to move on, to progress? In which way do we notice? In which way do we become aware that is not right anymore, but this is? How does it happen?
It's different for different people.
Yes?
So a lot of suffering now.
Would we start better, Carla? Leave that on the last, leave that for the last. Can we start through the laws? Lift up. As more as we study the natural laws, we become aware of ourselves, that we are not a physical body, we are immortal beings. Spiritism is really a theory of self-knowledge. We become aware of our tendencies or vices or likes or dislikes or virtues which we developed partially already, and those aspects that cause pain to us, that cause suffering to us. We become aware, then we freely choose now to train our free will and say, no, well, now I know, because I'm putting myself in experience. If I do that, that is the consequence. So I choose to do it in a different way. That is developing the faculty of freedom according to the guidance of God. And as more as we do it, we learn through love. But sometimes we humanity, we still are in a stage that we learn quite often through pain. Also, the other aspect also can happen through saturation. Have you heard that people learn through saturation? Of course, it's not with us, but it's with other people. What is it, learning through saturation? For those who never heard. How do we understand that?
I think it's when we come to the point where we're so comfortable with ourselves that we feel this need to change.
Precisely.
Keep going on with the same acts.
Precisely. The same actions, the same movement, and it can go on for centuries and centuries and centuries, and yet, why in one moment I may choose to change that? Why?
We have like lots of responsibility.
Who guides us? God. So even if I insist, going the same thing, no, there comes a point that I'm saturated. It's extremely uncomfortable. Saturated of myself, which is extremely uncomfortable, but is extremely healthy in the same time. Is that making sense? It's uncomfortable because even I cannot sustain or support myself in that negativity or whatever it is, yet it is healthy because it's coming to the point that now I choose to allow myself to give a different movement through the guidance of the divine law, because we are all still guided by the divine law, which we bring within ourselves. Yeah. So even if I insist to go in one way, the divine laws are within myself and they are feeding me back. Sooner or later, that movement of saturation is a positive feedback that my inner wisdom is giving to me. That I can do better. there are better ways that I can learn. That is time, more than time, to allow myself new movements, better movements, better. Yeah. Anything else that you take from here?
All you've been saying is true. I think I mentioned it before. I'm always carrying this little booklet around with me, and I'm reading it on the train.
What is that?
It's Simplistic.
Oh yes, that is very
You
good.
just flick it and you see some lovely little things that remind you of eternal life and how good it is to be good. It pays you to be good.
The little book that Jack is talking about is by Allan Kardec, Spiritism in its simple expressions.
Yeah.
For those who want to seek it, it's a very small book for us to have in our handbags and feed our
It's also very
selves.
good when you're on a noisy train, because you can't, when you get the Spirit's book and the Medium's book or the Gospel, you can't really study it seriously on the train with that noise going on. But this, if you get a few moments, you can just read a few bits and pieces from it, the principle involved. And that you're not studying it, you're reading and catching up on what you already know. And it's lovely to catch up. I was reading a bit of it getting here.
It's always good that we can
Yeah.
constantly be reinforcing the reading, the study, and in that way we are feeding ourselves spiritually with the new terminology of life experiences. And in that way we are coming to the end today. And in these final moments, may we give thanks to God, the creator of everything and everyone in the universe, our loving Father, who created us all with love in order for us to learn to love. Our gratitude towards our Master Jesus, our light in our journey, our brother and our guide, who loves us all unconditionally. So knowing that no one is alone, never. Oh, gratitude for the enlightened spirits, who once more have been with us, helping all of us, incarnating all of those in the spirit who are here with us, brothers and sisters in humanity. Grant the possibility for us to study, to reflect about ourselves as immortal beings, as beings who are essentially of goodness, beings who are essentially of light and love, who are progressing, who are learning, who still do mistakes as learners. Our gratitude for this place where we gather, for this Spiritist Center, for this community center. And we also ask that the enlightened spirits may bless every and each brother and sisters in humanity who entered this Spiritist Center, this community center. May your light shine upon every and each one of us, and also spread around this society, helping those in their homes who are in need of more light, who are in need of more peace. We also remember all of those who may be thinking to commit suicide, and ask you, dear Master Jesus, that you may shine your light upon every and each one of them, and may the blessings of your divine love embrace them, soothe them, calm them, wherever we are, where they are, and with whom they are. Help them. We are all beings of goodness. We can all learn through our experiences that God presents to us. We all bring within ourselves the strength to cope with different experiences. We may not have learned, but we can learn. May the blessings of the good spirits soothe all these beings who essentially already are beings of love. And with our hearts full of joy and gratitude, we end our meeting today. So be it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll see you next